I never believed in urban legends, especially not the one about the voodoo doll that supposedly appeared in the rooms of bad people in our town. It always seemed like a silly story parents made up to scare their kids into behaving. But that all changed the night I found it sitting on my dresser, staring at me with its beady little eyes. I'd just gotten home from a night out with my friends. We'd been up to no good, vandalizing some abandoned buildings and shoplifting from the corner store. Nothing too serious, I thought, just typical teenage rebellion. As I stumbled into my dark bedroom, flicking on a light, I froze. There it was, perched on top of my jewelry box like it had always been there. The doll was about 6 inches tall, made of rough burlap fabric that looked old and frayed. Its body was lumpy and misshapen, stuffed unevenly with what looked like dried leaves or herbs. The arms and legs were stick-thin, ending in tiny pointed hands and feet. But it was the face that really got to me. 2 black button eyes, sewn on crookedly, seemed to follow my every move. The mouth was just a jagged red thread, stitched into a creepy little smile. Wisps of real human hair stuck out from its head in messy tufts. At first, I thought it must be some kind of prank. My little sister was always leaving her dolls in my room to annoy me, but as I got closer, I realized this was nothing like her cutesy plastic toys. This thing radiated a sinister energy that made the hair on my arms stand up. I reached out to touch it, but jerked my hand back at the last second. Something told me I shouldn't. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, that I was just tired and a little drunk. I changed for bed and crawled under the covers, keeping one eye on the doll the whole time. Eventually, I drifted off into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, I woke up hoping it had all been a weird dream. But nope, the doll was still there, grinning at me from my dresser. I got ready for school in record time, not wanting to be in the same room as that thing any longer than necessary. As I headed out, I briefly considered showing it to my parents, but decided against it. They'd probably just think I was trying to pull a fast one on them. At school, I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept drifting back to that creepy doll in my room. During lunch, I overheard some kids at the next table whispering about the urban legend. Apparently, the doll only showed up for people who'd done really bad things. It wouldn't leave until the person changed their ways and started being good. If they didn't, weird and scary stuff would start happening to them. I tried to laugh it off, but a cold feeling of dread settled in my stomach. On my way home, I stopped by the corner store we'd stolen from the night before. Feeling like an idiot, I confessed to the owner and paid for what we'd taken. He seemed surprised but grateful, and said he wouldn't press charges. I hoped that would be enough to make the doll disappear. No such luck. When I got to my room, the doll was still there. Only now, it was sitting on my pillow instead of the dresser. I swear its smile looked even wider than before. That night, I had terrible nightmares about being chased through dark alleys by a giant version of the doll. Every time, I woke up in a cold sweat. Its eyes were locked on me from across the room. The next day at school, everything that could go wrong did. I failed a pop quiz, spilled lunch all over myself, and face-planted in front of everyone during gym class. It was like I had the world's worst luck all of a sudden. When I got home, the doll had moved again. This time, it was on my desk, right next to my computer. As I stared at it, my laptop suddenly crashed, erasing the essay I'd been working on all week. I started to panic. Maybe there was something to this urban legend after all. I racked my brain, trying to think of all the bad things I'd done lately that might have brought this curse on me. There was the vandalism and shoplifting, sure. But I'd already tried to make that right. What else could it be? Then it hit me. A few weeks ago, I'd started a nasty rumor about a girl in my class just because I was jealous of her. It had spread like wildfire, and last I heard, she'd been so upset she'd stopped coming to school. At the time, I'd felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Now, I just felt sick with guilt. The next day, I tracked down the girl's best friend and confessed everything. I begged her to pass on my apology and told her I'd tell everyone the rumor wasn't true. She glared at me the whole time, but finally nodded and walked away. I spent the rest of the day setting the record straight with anyone who would listen. That night, I approached my room with dread, half expecting the doll to be waiting for me on my bed. But when I opened the door, it was back on the dresser where I'd first seen it. Was it my imagination, or did it look a little less menacing? The smile didn't seem quite as wide, and the eyes didn't feel like they were boring into my soul anymore. Over the next few days, I made a conscious effort to be a better person. I volunteered to help my mom with chores around the house. I stood up for a kid who was being bullied in the hallway at school. I even signed up to tutor younger students after class. With each good deed, I noticed the doll's position in my room changing. It moved from the dresser to a bookshelf, then to my desk, and finally to the far corner of the room. Just when I thought things were getting better, everything went sideways. I woke up one morning to find the doll sitting on my chest, its face inches from mine. I screamed and swatted it away, sending it flying across the room. As soon as it hit the wall, I felt a sharp pain in my side, like I'd been punched. Throughout the day, more weird things happened. My locker combination wouldn't work, even though I knew I was entering it correctly. In the cafeteria, my chair collapsed under me for no reason. During biology, the frog we were supposed to dissect suddenly came back to life and jumped at my face. Each time something went wrong, I felt that same sharp pain in my side. When I got home, the doll was back on my dresser, but now it looked angry. The stitched mouth had turned down into a frown, and the button eyes seemed to glow with an eerie red light. I realized I must have done something to upset it, but I couldn't figure out what. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the doll's face looming over me. I kept feeling phantom touches on my skin, like tiny hands were crawling all over me. When my alarm went off in the morning, I was exhausted and on edge. At school, I overheard more whispers about the urban legend. Someone said that if you tried to get rid of the doll or harm it in any way, it would turn on you completely. The bad luck would get worse and worse until you either fixed whatever you'd done wrong, or, well, no one knew what happened after that. No one had ever pushed it that far. I spent the whole day racking my brain, trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. Had I missed apologizing to someone? Was there some bad deed I'd forgotten about? As I walked home, I passed an animal shelter and remembered something. Last month, I'd found a stray kitten in our neighborhood. Instead of taking it to the shelter or trying to find its owner, I just ignored it. I'd seen it around a few times after that, looking thinner and mangier each time. Feeling sick with guilt, I went into the shelter and asked if they could help me look for the kitten. The staff was really nice about it, and we spent the next few hours searching the neighborhood. Just when I was about to give up hope, we heard a faint meow coming from under a porch. Sure enough, it was the kitten, looking half-starved and scared. We took it back to the shelter, where they checked it over and said it would be okay with some food and care. I filled out paperwork to foster the kitten until it could be adopted, promising to take good care of it. As I left the shelter with the little ball of fur curled up in a carrier, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. When I got home and opened my bedroom door, I almost cried with relief. The doll was gone. There was no trace of it anywhere in my room. The kitten mewed softly from its carrier, and I felt a surge of affection for the little creature. Maybe this had been the final test, the last wrong I needed to right. Over the next few weeks, I kept expecting the doll to reappear. Every time I entered my room, I held my breath, half expecting to see those button eyes staring at me. But it never came back. The kitten, which I named Lucky, thrived under my care. My luck at school improved, and I found myself actually enjoying being a better person. I never told anyone about my experience with the voodoo doll. Who would believe me? But sometimes, late at night, I find myself glancing around my room, half expecting to see those beady, button eyes watching me from the shadows. It's a reminder to stay on the right path, to think twice before doing something I know is wrong. The urban legend about the watchful doll lives on in our town. Every now and then, I overhear kids whispering about it, adding new details to the story. Some say the doll grows larger the worse you behave. Others claim it can speak, whispering your sins in your ear while you sleep. A few even insist it can physically hurt you if you ignore its warnings for too long. I don't know if any of that is true, but I do know that for those terrifying days, that little burlap doll turned my life upside down and forced me to take a long, hard look at the person I was becoming. Whether it was real magic or just the power of guilt and superstition, it worked. I'm not perfect now, but I try a lot harder to do the right thing. Sometimes I wonder about the origins of the doll. How long has it been watching over our town? Who made it, and why? Are there others like it out there, silently guiding people back to the path of good? Or was mine special, a one-of-a-kind supernatural life coach? I may never know the answers to these questions, but one thing's for sure. I'll never forget those days when a creepy little voodoo doll taught me the importance of being good. And if I ever start to backslide, to give in to those darker impulses we all have, I half expect to come home and find it waiting for me, ready to set me straight once again. Lucky purrs contentedly in my lap as I finish writing this, a living reminder of the change I've made in my life. And sometimes, when I catch a glimpse of something small and dark out of the corner of my eye, I smile and whisper a quiet thank you to the watchful doll, wherever it might be now.